Good Sunday, people. Good Sunday, good people. Welcome to Breaking Chains True Crime, our weekend book club meeting where we continue to read Hope, a Memoir of Survival in Cleveland by Amanda Berry and Gina DeJesus. Yes, as Chopper says, you must follow Chopper's word. Once upon a time, there was a like button that liked to be smashed. And if you smash that like button, you would be awesome. The end. It's nice to see you, Chopper. I haven't seen you around. I've missed you. Oh, so nice to see you all. Good to see you. And here is Cinnamon, my lovely co-reader. Hello.
Hello. How are you?
I'm pretty good. How are you?
I'm well. It's a nice Sunday here and just kind of kicking back and, waiting for our book club today.
Yeah. So it is actually, I think we're in generally the same area, and it's been kind of a nice sunny day. Not too hot.
Not too
At least
cold.
where I am.
Yeah.
Yeah, not too hot, not too cold. Yeah. And I do want to say a couple things, a couple quick things before we get into our reading. So one of the reasons I chose reading this book is because it's about two girls who actually three girls who went missing. They just vanished off the face of the earth and then turned up alive 10 years later, right? And this is a book written by two of them, and we're learning what their experience is like. And there are other missing persons cases going on right now, and I'm thinking of two in particular, very specifically: Hannah Kobayashi and Sebastian Rogers. And I think two very different things about those two cases. But specifically with Sebastian Rogers, people on the internet are so dead focused on only the things and the people they can see, and don't realize that there could be so many other explanation for all the other things going on, for what's gone on, and that we don't know everything. So learning what's going on in the life of a person who's missing for 10 years, it gives a little bit of insight into, I personally believe that Sebastian is alive and he's out there. He left on his own. He was lured out by somebody that he thought he knew, or he didn't know, or had just met. And he was basically told, hey, we'll just meet up for a minute. You won't be gone long. It was like he was kind of, we don't even know if he snuck out several times before that happened. And this is just the time that he ended up missing for whatever reason. And it's possible that he willingly left and now is not willingly staying away, or he is willingly staying away for other reasons that we can't possibly know, right? But I just think there's so many other possibilities than the misinformation and disinformation that keeps getting put out there, that tries to keep pinning it on one side of the family or another, right?
Right. And I think the Hannah Kobayashi story is really interesting.
Yeah.
And there have been so many twists and turns, and it's been so confusing, and I feel for the family because it looks like it's really torn them apart in many different ways. It's been so tragic,
Yeah.
and it will be interesting to see how this all plays out. I keep thinking there's something more, right, that we don't know about this family and the situation, and everyone's trying to put the pieces together, but they're not quite fitting. And same for her. It sounds like she willingly left and willingly does not want to return. But the family seems to be adamant that, that might not be the case. So yeah, that one's
Right.
been a really interesting one.
With that one, that's one of the reasons when a case first comes out, I'm not a breaking news kind of creator. I'm more of an
Right.
analytic. analytical person. So I usually wait for more information. Hey, Harlot, and hey, everybody coming in. Um, what was I? I'm sorry. What was I starting to say?
Analytics. You're not a breaking news kind of person.
I'm more analytical. I'm more
Yeah,
analytical. I
which
wait for
is
information to
why we
come
love
out.
you.
And as I've started, and which is why I haven't really covered Hana Kobayashi, but the thoughts that are formulating for me are that there's some sort of scam going on, but I don't
Right.
know who's.
Right.
I'm not pinning it on Hannah, the missing girl. I don't know who, but it was started to get weird for me when there was an immediate break in the family. The
Right.
father taking his own life, that was a big deal. That does not normally happen, right?
That was a
And
shocker.
it feels like there must have been something more behind that, right?
Mhm.
And I, in looking at some of the things that the aunt said in the wake of her disappearance, I realized that she actually has a social media presence and is a
Yes.
content creator. And
Yes.
that started to really get into my, like, I started looking side eye at that. I
Right.
almost start to look side eye at who's already a content creator and then throws themselves into true crime, especially if, she just didn't seem super, she just didn't seem super, I don't know, authentic. There's seemed to be something kind of weird going on,
I agree.
and
And yeah.
go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, the thing that big question I had was, her sister was very visible. She did several interviews, and the aunt,
Yeah.
and of course, the poor father, passed away. But where's the mother?
Mhm.
It seems strange to me that she took it. Now, who knows what the story is? There could be a very good reason for it, but I felt like, why is the aunt taking such a big role in this and being so present in front of all the cameras and talking, 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 talking? And, where's the mom? And I just, that felt weird to me.
Yeah, and it's not, and I thought about that, and I thought, well, in the initial stages, it's understandable when the closest members of the family don't want to be the ones on camera talking, because they
Yes.
want to, they're either freaking out or they're doing other things, and they delegate duties to other people. So I'm like, okay,
Right.
they
Yeah.
delegated they delegated spokesperson duties to the
To
aunt.
the aunt.
That would
Right.
make, but then but then when I started seeing more of what was said, and then I see that there's this rift between the two sides of the family. The aunt has come out and like literally distance herself from the other side, and and Hannah's sister and that side of the family have literally come out. They came out specifically to say we are distancing ourselves from each other. And on one of the News Nations report, it said because they had, and this is another red flag, they had issues around how the GoFundMe money was being spent.
Right, I was gonna mention that. Right, exactly.
Yeah. So, that's when the alarm bells go up for me. It feels like, and then Hannah apparently was involved in this marriage scam, right? Lots of people get involved in that marriage scam business. I'm sorry. It's unfortunate. It's true, but it's true. It doesn't mean that they're always going to go around scamming, but it could mean that, but there is that possibility, that here's just another way to scam people. Now, again, maybe it was somebody else in the family saying, okay, here, oh, look, it seems like she's gone missing. Maybe we can pull a scam, even though we know she's okay. Let's keep this scam going because we're collecting money, right?
Right.
It
Mhm.
just, it just feels really, really weird to me. And, you know, to me, it's obvious that this young woman doesn't want to be in contact with her family for one reason or another, whether it's a good reason, it could be any number of reasons why. Maybe the family is horrible. Maybe she has fallen into some sort of, group or cult that is triangulating her from her family. We don't know that, but she's an adult now, and she's basically, it sounds like she and others in, close to her, whatever, the message is being sent, I'm okay, or she's okay and she doesn't want to be contacted, right?
That's right. That's
so, right. Those are just my initial thoughts. But one of the reasons I'm interested in books like the one we're about to start reading again right here is because you get a sense for what it's like for the missing person. I'm not suggesting that these missing people are going through exactly what these girls were going through, like being locked in a basement and AR'd several times by their captor and all that type of thing. But you hear the stories of what they saw on TV and how it felt. And, when they felt like, wow, my mom is caring about me, or why isn't my mom caring about me? All of that stuff. Yeah, exactly. I know I can't either, but money is a very powerful thing, and money will cause people to do the worst things to their own family members, unfortunately. It just will. So anyway, I don't think we've been here since Thanksgiving, so I hope any of the Americans in the audience had as lovely a Thanksgiving as they possibly could have. Did you do anything fun for Thanksgiving?
Well, the tradition in my family is that I get to cook.
Oh, so you
And
cooked.
yeah, and I just don't like cook. I have to start everything from scratch and, drive myself crazy. I start 2 days ahead. I have to do all the shopping. It's just it became kind of an obsession, and now it's sort of like, why am I doing all this? But,
Yeah.
my family still loves it, and it is probably the only holiday during the year that I just sort of go all out and do all that, and so it's okay. Um, but it was great. We had guests, and it was a full house of people, and everyone ate and was merry and all of those things. So it was very nice.
So
How was yours?
you
Sorry.
took a full week to prepare, and then that
Oh
probably
my
took
gosh,
like
it
hours,
is,
right?
and then it takes me 3 days to recover after that, so
Yeah, exactly.
so that's why
Oh,
I'm saying,
yeah.
every year it takes me longer to
Yeah.
recover. How was yours?
Yeah. It was good. I actually, my
Your boys were
for the
away,
most
right?
part,
Yeah.
yeah, they were with their dad on Thanksgiving, but then I saw them the following week. I saw them on Saturday and Sunday because it was
Oh,
my
nice.
son's birthday. So we went out for
Oh.
my son's birthday. But
Oh,
yeah,
that's
it was
nice.
nice.
Yeah.
We always have a great time together. And in fact, when I was watching that video of Sebastian with Katie, I don't know if you saw that, but they just released the video of him eating with Katie at the Roadhouse the night he went missing.
Oh, I don't think I've seen that yet.
It's the way it's being interpreted. If you have there's a group of channels or people who they want to see Katie in a specific way, and they look at it and say, oh, well, look at her, she's just being a terrible mother.
Right.
But I look at that, and I am reminded of dozens and hundreds of meals I had with my kid that looked the exact same way
Exactly
as
the
that.
same way. Right. Right. It it
Exactly
it
the same way.
Yeah, it's almost like you can't really take it out of context because, you can look at a glimpse of what that might look like to anybody else. Just having that may look one way to one person, a different way to another person, and it's all the lens that we
Yeah.
have, given our backgrounds and experiences. But anyway, yeah.
I didn't. The same here, cat lady. I didn't see any. In fact, it was a very calm experience. If anything, you could tell that, like, it was just them having a normal day. So let's sit down and have dinner at Texas Roadhouse, and they shoveled in the food and left. That was it. That was just, and they looked on their phone while they did it.
Right.
It's very typical. Nobody was looking around, looking nefarious, trying to figure out who's coming in, who's going out, who should I meet up with. There's none of that nefarious bullshit that's being put out there. I don't see any of that. I see a normal going out to dinner night with my mom. There was one thing I noticed. What you didn't see was a lot of like joking and laughter and stuff like that. And maybe that's just the personality of them too, and also it may have just been the state of mind he was in at the time, because he's thinking, we're having these things and I have to go back, or he may just have that thing on his mind from whatever happened that day at school. It's just, or maybe he's thinking, I got to get back home to connect with the person that I'm going to meet up with later tonight. You know what I mean? It's just, there's so many possible things that could be going through that kid's head in the, during that dinner. But I was just thinking, when I looked at that, it just took me back to like 50,000 different similar dinners with my kids,
Mm-hmm. Right.
So anyway, so let's continue our reading. I think I'll have you start reading first.
Okay.
And for anybody who wasn't here last week, we started reading this book last week, and basically we're going through the writings of the victims, and it goes back and forth between Gina and Amanda, and this is Amanda. Amanda is the one who ended up getting pregnant with her abuser's daughter. But this is very early on in the actual after the kidnapping, and we've heard about how the different ways that no, Steve, everything's fine. Oh God. Oh goodness, somebody's getting in their car outside. Oh my gosh. Have to let everybody know. So we've heard about how he got her into his car, because she knew his daughter, and he said, let's go see her at my house. And then they get to his house, and he shows her upstairs this room where this other girl is laying down in a bedroom, and she thinks that she's just some random girl that's there. And then he takes her downstairs and ties her up after R-ing her. So and then she starts talking about the type of food that she gets to eat. Usually he brings home fast food. Steve, hold on a sec. So we're just hearing more from her actual journal, from when because she actually asked the Ariel, the captor, asked her what she wanted one night when he went out, like, can I get you something? And she said, yeah, can you get me a journal? And she started writing. Yes, cat lady, this is the same. This is that it's the 3 young women from Cleveland that were all kidnapped at separate times but kept in the same house in Cleveland. Yes. So that's what this is. I will have Cinnamon start to read first. I'm going to put this bigger on the screen so everybody can read with us.
Thank you.
And let's go.
Okay. June 2003, first summer, June 3, Amanda. I haven't eaten in 2 days. I guess he just forgot about me yesterday. I'm feeling weak. I'm not sure why he won't spend much money on food for me, but he will buy me cigarettes and weed. Getting high dulls the pain of being here. If it weren't for the weed, I would have killed myself by now. Maybe he knows that, and that's why he gets it for me. Before I was here, pretty much everyone I knew smoked weed. It was just what teenagers in my neighborhood did. I like to sit in my room, listen to music, and smoke a bowl once in a while. Now I'm smoking a lot, and it takes me to a different place for a little while, but it doesn't give me anything for free. One time. When he finally gives me a Mr. Hero sandwich, I keep the napkin. It's very thin, but has lots of white space where I can write. I'm keeping McDonald's and Wendy's bags too because I can tear them open and write on the inside. The only paper I have is my diary, but that's filling up. So I keep every scrap of paper I can find in case I run out. Writing things down makes me feel closer to my family. Are you still going to take me home at the end of June? I ask him. You said you would. I don't know, he says. Maybe next year.
You told me you were taking me home, I tell him, crying. I need to see my family. He complains that I'm always talking about my family like I'm the only one who's missing someone. Soldiers don't see their families for years at a time, he says, and they don't cry like babies about it. Oh my God. I just saw a TV news story about a female soldier from Cleveland who's in Iraq and who won't be coming home before Christmas. I think about her on the other side of the world from her family and know that it must be hard for her, but I also know she will make it. Life is giving me a test. I have to pass. God wouldn't give me anything I can't handle. I can do this. June 10th. This morning, Channel 19 has a story about a 16-year-old girl from Massachusetts, Molly Bish, who's been missing for 3 years. They found her body in the woods. I'm so sad and sorry for her and her family. What agony. I'm worried my mom is watching this too, scared that's how they're going to find me. And now there's another story about 5 women as young as 14 who were sex slaves for 15 years. Why do so many men hurt women? June 17th. He hates the feeling of air blowing on him, so when he sleeps in my room, he turns off my fan. Without it, I feel like I'm suffocating. Even when he sleeps downstairs or stays out all night, he sometimes turns off my fan, though he knows I want it. He keeps it just out of my reach so he can control it. Next page. You there, Cinnamon? Cinnamon.
Sorry. I closed the door because my dogs were barking. Sorry.
Just we're only on page we're on page 38 of 332. So and 2 weeks ago before Thanksgiving we read the first part of it. So that's where we're at. Okay, go ahead.
Right. And for those of you who don't know, when you see or you hear the 1 time or 2 time or 3 time, what that refers to is the number of times that he SAs her in a day. Yeah. Okay. He's back from work 1 time. Can you please turn the fan on? I ask him. In a little while, he says. Why not? It's too hot. In a little while. He's like a prison guard who loves taunting, punishing, and taking away privileges. I make loud groaning noises to annoy him until he finally gets up and turns on the fan. He smacks my arm hard. Don't be a baby, he yells at me. He is on me again. I don't want him to see me crying because I hate giving him the satisfaction of knowing he hurts me, but I can't help it and my tears spill. You have been acting really strange lately, and you'd better stop, he says when he's done. Stop crying so much. It's only going to make you look old. You're prettier when you laugh. June 23. I saw Ricky Lake's show about SA victims putting their lives back together. I hope when I get out of here that I am not scared of every man for the rest of my life, but I'm afraid I will be. I don't want to be paranoid. I want my life back the way it was. Can I bounce back from this? I'm fighting back thoughts of killing myself. At some point, this has to end, doesn't it? If I thought I was going to never get out of here before I died, what would be the point of even getting up in the morning? I have to believe that one day I will walk out that door free, and it's going to be like coming back from the dead.
June 24th. I wake up in the morning and I hear a girl's voice downstairs. Who is it? Another prisoner? Maybe one of his daughters. I strain to hear over the radio, but I can't make out what they're saying. Hours pass, and it's late afternoon when he unlocks my door. 1 time. Or 1x. I had a girl here this morning, he says afterward. He keeps telling me that he's going to find somebody else to kidnap. And when he does, he's going to let me go. I want to be at home more than anything, but I don't want somebody else to suffer through this. What happened to her? I ask. You could have been going home tonight or tomorrow, he said, but people saw me bringing her in, so I had to let her go. He says he was driving by Meyer Pool, a public pool over by Lincoln West High School. He went to that school, which is only a couple of blocks from here. He saw this young girl, maybe 14 or 15, walking along and asked her if she wanted to get high. She got in his car and he brought her back here. He says that because he knew he couldn't keep her, they just smoked weed and had sex on some blankets on the living room floor. He claims she was into it. Maybe he's telling the truth. I don't think he could R her and let her go because she knows where he lives. After they were done, he says he gave her a ride back to the pool, but he's mad at her because she stole his weed. Next page.
I can't believe he came that close to having another prisoner. And I can't believe there is a girl out there who came to this house and had sex with him willingly. Girl, you don't know how lucky you are. You have no idea how close you were to being chained to a wall. June 25. I hear him on the phone with one of his daughters. She needs a bathing suit, so he's going to bring her money to buy it. To everyone outside this house, he must seem like a nice, ordinary guy. He drives the school bus, talks to neighbors, works on cars in his backyard, buys presents for his daughters. I wish somebody would figure out what he's doing inside this house. It must be nice to be able to go swimming in this 90-degree heat. I can smell grilling outside, the smell of summer. I daydream of barbecued ribs. I'm always so hungry. There's another story on the news about a soldier who won't be home until the holidays, and I take it as a sign. I've been here 2 months. I can do 6 if I really have to. I check the calendar and start counting. It's 182 days until Christmas. August 20th, 2003, strangle. Amanda. He wakes me up again. It's whatever he wants whenever he wants it. Even after 4 months, it's still 3 or 4 times a day.
Yuck. My strategy has become don't fight. Don't make him mad. Do whatever I have to do to stay alive and get home. But now he's making me lie on my stomach while he does that really nasty thing again. It hurts so bad. How would he like it if somebody stuck something into him that way? It's horrible and he won't stop. I can't help it. So I scream, let me go home or kill me. He stops, sits me up, and looks at me funny. Do you want to die? He finally asks. No, but I don't want to be here. It's hard to get the words out through the tears. If I was dead, at least I could see my family from heaven. He just looks at me for a while and then quietly says, okay. He steps out into the hallway and returns with an old vacuum cleaner, like one from the 70s. He takes the cord and wraps it around my neck and then starts tightening it. I feel it squeezing my throat tighter and tighter. I feel suddenly calm. I close my eyes. I'm ready to die. I pray silently. Please, God, save me. I love you, Mom. I love you, Beth. I love my girls. I love you all so much. I feel a release. No more pain. Then the cord suddenly goes loose and he throws it on the floor. I'm not here to kill you, he shouts. I don't want to kill you. This is just about my sexual problem. Jesus Christ. He storms out of the room. No matter what he says, I know he could kill me at any minute. His anger comes out of nowhere like lightning. I never know what's going to set him off. As I rub my throat and sit there thinking, I realize I have a mission, like the soldiers. This man enjoys hurting. Turn next page.
Women, and I want people to know it. I don't want him to get away with it. I need to outlast him. November 22, 2003, Numb. Amanda, I'm out of paper, so I start writing on the napkins he's brought from fast food restaurants. I have to be very careful not to press down too hard with the pen because they tear so easily. I take my time because there is so much time. I try to numb my mind with TV so I can forget that I'm shivering in this cold house. Morning shows, soap operas, sitcoms, movies, Jay Leno, more movies, just filling time. The only thing I really care about is the news. Starting at 5:30 in the morning, if I'm awake, and I usually am, I flip through the channels looking for anything about me. There's usually nothing, but every once in a while, I see my family. I listen to the radio late at night after all the local news shows are over. He gave me an old CD player and an Eminem CD, And I listen to Lose Yourself over and over, trying to believe when he sings, "You can do anything you set your mind to." I've set my mind to get into the next day. I go days without speaking. Because the room is always dark, the light is no different at 3 in the morning than it is at 3 in the afternoon. He gave me cards and I play solitaire. I finished all the crossword puzzles in my book. I've colored every page of a coloring book he gave me. He brings me the
newspapers sometimes and magazines that he must get for free because they are so boring and I've never heard of them. Being alone is bad, but it is far worse when he comes in and it always ends with me crying. Today, he wants to talk and is acting like he hasn't done anything wrong, like we're friends. I don't say a word to him and just keep staring at the TV. January 2004, New Year. January 1, Amanda. You're so pretty, he says as he starts pawing me again. Stand this way, stand that way, put your arms around me. You're so beautiful, blah, blah, blah. He has a whole little routine he makes me recite about how much I love it, how much I want him. If I don't say it, he's rougher. It's been almost 9 months since he kidnapped me. He's always touching me like he owns me. He talks about the different parts of my body and says they're his, that they belong to him. He says that we're together. How can he think that? How can he think that if he has to lock me up to keep me here? You can't just take my whole life away, I tell him. What life? He says, laughing. Working at Burger King? That's not a life. What do you know about me? Nothing. You have no right to take my life away. Next page.
He keeps touching me, and I feel like cutting off his hands or something else. I hope I don't catch any diseases from him. I'm desperate to see a doctor when I get out of here. He's raped me he's AR'd me 9 times in the past 3 days, but I've decided I'm not going to mark X's in my diary anymore. I want him to be held accountable someday, but when I look back at these X's, I remember every time all over again. It's more than I can bear right now. January 9. I keep thinking about the day I was taken. This wouldn't have happened if I'd called in sick or if I'd left work at the usual time or if DJ had picked me up or if I hadn't gotten into the van. Could I actually have been able to avoid all this? He sits on my bed. I shift a little and move the chain around so it hurts less around my waist. I hate talking to him, but the loneliness is brutal. I have to talk to somebody. When are you going to take me home? I ask him. I've been here long enough. You have to be patient, he says. Maybe after 3 years, you might get to be free. 3 years? That's forever. I can't take this for 3 years. I'll kill myself. I'm not going to believe him. I'm getting out of here sooner than that. I know it. I have all my belongings lined up, my clothes, my diary, my pictures and videos. That's everything I have, and it all fits in a little box. If he said, okay, let's go, I could be ready in 2 minutes.
Please remember to hit the thumbs up. Thank you very much. As we continue. January 26, 2004, cops at the door. At around 10 p.m. on Monday, January 26, 2004, 2 Cleveland police officers knocked on the front door of 2207 Seymour Avenue. They wanted to question the owner, Ariel Castro, because a mother had filed a complaint about how he had treated her 4-year-old son on his school bus earlier that day. That morning, Castro had punched in at 6:40 and drove his usual route, picking up 60 kids and dropping them off at two elementary schools. When he was done, he volunteered for an extra midday shift and was assigned to pick up 2 children and deliver them to a 2-hour program for children with ADHD at Wade Park Elementary School. He picked up the children in a similar bus and drove to Wade, where only one of them got off. The second, the 4-year-old boy, was still on the bus when Castro drove to a Wendy's restaurant for lunch. The boy later told police that when Castro realized he was on the bus, he ordered him, lay down, bitch. It was a cold day with heavy freezing rain and sleet, and the boy stayed in the bus alone while Castro went inside to eat. Castro then drove to a parking lot and read the newspaper and then went to a school building. Finally, after more than 2 hours, the child was taken to Wade Park Elementary, where a teacher told Castro that he should just drive him home. As school was over, Castro dropped him with a babysitter at his house, and the boy's mother called the police when she came home and heard her son's account.
When police did not find Castro at his home that evening, they got back in their patrol car and left, referring the case to detectives for follow-up. Amanda was chained in a bedroom on the second floor, but she never heard anyone knocking. Castro, as usual, had left the radio blaring in the hall. A month later, Castro was finally interviewed about the incident at the police station. He did not deny leaving the boy on the bus, but said it was an accident, an oversight. He said he only realized the boy was still there when he returned to the bus headquarters, and he insisted that he had never cursed at him. He said he wasn't sure why he hadn't followed standard procedure and checked the bus at the end of his route. I was still mourning my father's death, and I wasn't quite right at that point in time, he told the police, noting that his father had died 2 weeks earlier. I'm very sorry for forgetting the student on the bus. Police referred the case to prosecutors who declined to seek criminal charges. The school system suspended Castro for 60 days without pay.
Welcome, Buffalo. Part 2. Okay, let's go ahead and keep going and see how far we can get with part 2. You agree?
Sounds good.
Okay. And welcome everybody coming in. Please remember to hit the thumbs up. Thank you very much. We are reading Hope, a tale of what's it? Sorry, I keep missing a memoir of survival in Cleveland. Okay. Ariel Castro was born in the lush green hills of rural Puerto Rico, and his journey to Seymour Avenue began with his father, Pedro Castro, who arrived in Cleveland in the mid-1960s with big dreams and a chopped-off hand. The elder Castro, known as Nona, joined the post-World War II flood of Puerto Ricans to the U.S. mainland. He came from Yauco, a town in the southwestern mountains, where coffee and bananas were plentiful, but jobs and money were not. In the 1950s and 60s, Cleveland's steel mills, railroad yards, and manufacturing plants were drawing people from struggling Appalachian hamlets, as well as eager immigrants from Ireland, Hungary, and other European countries, and Puerto Rico. Nona followed his brothers to Cleveland, where the Castro family was establishing itself as a well-regarded clan of small businessmen in the city's west side, just across from the Cuyahoga River from downtown. Nona's older brother, Julio Cesar Ceci Castro, had opened the Caribe Grocery, a bodega that sold Caribbean food, and became a social and political hub for the growing Puerto Rico community. His brother Edwin started Isla Music, which featured Latin music and quickly became a local landmark. Another brother ran a hardware store. Nona opened a used car lot. I don't know what's going on with my mouth today. Nona opened a used car lot on West 25th Street and was an unforgettable salesman with a prosthetic left hand that he would put on and take off. He often told people that his hand had been mangled when someone accidentally slammed it in a car door. But the real story, next page,
eventually made its way around Cleveland. He had lost the hand in Puerto Rico in a fight over a woman. The man who had sliced off Castro's hand at the wrist and left him with scars on his back and head was named Jose Pepe Rodriguez, a neighbor of Castro's in La Parra, a tiny cluster of cinder block houses on a narrow mountain road in the outskirts of Yauco. A half-century later, relatives of both men, who have since died, aren't certain of the exact cause of the machete fight, but they do remember that it had something to do with Nona's complicated relations with women. Nona began his first family with Lillian Rodriguez in a one-story house on top of a hill in La Parra. Starting in 1958, they had 3 children in 3 years. The third, Ariel, was born on July 10th, 1960. About a year later, when Lillian was pregnant with their 4th child, Nona left her and the children and took up with another woman, Gladys Torres, who lived farther down the country lane. Both women were pregnant with Nona's children at the same time in a village where just about everyone was related to one woman or the other. It was
Yeah.
around, oh my gosh, it was around then that Nona lost his hand. Monserrate Baez, Lillian's sister-in-law, recalled the sight of Nona driving his Jeep up the steep road with one hand, then stopping to fetch water from a communal well. He didn't let anything stop him from going about his business.
Wow. Aria Rodriguez Torres, Pepe's niece, and that said that Nona and Pepe eventually became friendly again, though there were plenty of bad feelings in the village about Nona's having abandoned Lillian and their 4 kids. Nona, like so many other men who had been working on farms, soon left for higher wages on the mainland. In Cleveland, he quickly earned enough money to send for Gladys, who now had 2 children with him. When Ariel was around 4, Lillian also went north, moving to Reading, Pennsylvania, where some of her relatives had settled. She left Ariel and his siblings with her mother in Puerto Rico and got a job operating a sewing machine in a factory. She sent money and presents home, and when Ariel was about 6, she returned to Yauco, gathered her children, and brought them all to Reading. But during the year or 2 that Ariel was living with his grandmother, he said something horrible happened. When he was about 5 years old, he said he was sexually abused by a boy about 9 or 10 years old who lived nearby. He said the abuse continued for about a year, but he never reported it to anyone. Castro would later give the same account to FBI agents and court-appointed psychiatrists examining him to determine if he was mentally competent to stand trial. It's known that people who are abused keep quiet, so I did, he told the psychiatrist. Because the abuse is alleged to have taken place nearly 50 years ago, it is difficult to verify, but next page.
The end of his life, Castro talked about it frequently. Law enforcement officials believe Castro might have fabricated the story as a way to defend his own behavior, possibly in the hope that a judge would be more lenient with him. Castro also repeated the allegations in a 4-page handwritten letter that police found in his kitchen on the day after his arrest. In that document, he identified his alleged abuser by his first name and the first names of his parents. In La Parra, relatives and friends recognized those names immediately. They said the alleged abuser, now about 60, was a neighbor of Castro's when they were boys, and he still lived in the area. When contacted by phone in the summer of 2014, the man was at first cordial and friendly, but when he heard the name Ariel Castro, he became angry and hung up. Castro was 12 in the spring of 1973 when Lillian moved the family from Reading to Cleveland. She later told police that even though she and Nona had split up, she wanted the kids to be closer to their father. Castro had virtually no relationship with his father as a young boy, and he often described his relationship with his mother as terrible. In the letter found by police, he complained of being abandoned by my father and later my mother. My mother was an abusive parent, he wrote. Her ways of discipline were very bad. For this made me grow hatred for her. There were times I wished she would die.
He told the court psychiatrist that his mother constantly hit him with belts, sticks, and an open hand, sometimes causing bruises. He said she was always yelling negative things and cursing at us, and I would ask God for her to die. But in one of the many contradictory statements he made, Castro also told the psychiatrist that his mother had done a good job of raising him. In fact, as an adult, he spent a great deal of time with her. She lived only a few blocks from Seymour Avenue, and he would visit her often, helping her with chores and eating dinner with her. The police reviewed his cell phone records after his arrest. It included a long list of calls. When police reviewed his cell phone records after his arrest, it included a long list of calls to her. Lillian Rodriguez, a small woman with white hair, visited him frequently when he was in jail awaiting sentencing. She has stayed largely out of the public eye since his death. In Cleveland, Ariel Castro attended Lincoln Junior High, where he later told law enforcement officials he was suspended for touching a girl's breast. When police interviewing him after his arrest asked him if he had ever sexually abused anyone other than his 3 captives, Castro said, "I had a girlfriend in junior high school. She would let me go under her shirt. I wanted to go further and she would say no. I tried to force her. I guess that was an early indication that I wanted to be in control. Wow, that was insightful. Um, During his years at Lincoln West High School, he played bass guitar in the school band and worked part dash.
Time at a Pick and Pay grocery store on West 65th Street. He was a shy teenager with acne, the Puerto Rican kid who worked produce and didn't have that much to do with his coworkers, many of whom were Irish American or Italian American. Sometimes, though, Castro would be seen in the parking lot with them, drinking beer and smoking dope after work. From a young age, he was openly prejudiced against African Americans and called them the N word or other slurs. When Castro was playing with a BB gun one day and shot a black kid from the neighborhood in the hand, nobody believed it was an accident. Castro stayed in school at a time when many others were dropping out, graduating in 1979. A year later, when he was 20, he met the woman who would in many ways become his first prisoner. Ariel Castro noticed immediately when a pretty dark-haired girl moved in across the street from his house on Burer Avenue, a few blocks from Seymour. Gramilda Figueroa, a petite 17-year-old, also from Yauco, hated her first name and told everyone to call her Nilda. Their courtship was quick. One summer evening, not long after they met, Castro took her on a date, and they spent hours parked on the shores of Lake Erie. When they returned home very late, Nilda's mother was furious that her daughter had spent all that time alone with a man. She told Castro that he was now responsible for Nilda. Now you have to take her with you.
Nilda moved across the street to Castro's house. They didn't marry but considered themselves common-law spouses. After one miscarriage, their son, Ariel Anthony Castro, was born in 1981, when Nilda was just 18. At first, Nilda's younger sister, Elida, and the rest of her family thought Castro was a fun, talented bass guitar player who didn't drink too much and smoked weed only now and then. He owned a car and took Nilda's younger siblings out on adventures. He got them a free McDonald's cheeseburger by bringing his half-eaten one back to the counter and lying about finding a hair in it. He kept that burger too, saying he might as well give it to his dog. But sometimes he also frightened the neighborhood kids, especially with an unnerving mannequin, a female torso with dark hair that he had bought at a yard sale. He used to startle people by propping it up in the passenger seat of his car when he was driving around. Castro also quickly became possessive about Nilda, ordering her to wear long skirts and forbidding her from wearing V-necks or anything even slightly revealing. If she wanted to dress in something that he thought was too provocative, he threatened her, saying, "You better not." Eventually, he began buying all her clothes at thrift stores. He told her that her place was at home and hated when she went outside without him, even if just to go shopping. "I can't believe this," she told her sister, Elida. "I'm not doing anything wrong." Castro worked in a series of low-paying jobs, first as a machinist at Lehner Products, Lehner Products, a company that made tips for car antennas, then at a plastics company and a
Used car dealership. In the evenings, he played in several bands. "Where were you?" Nilda asked him one night when he came home especially late. "Why do you always leave me here alone with the baby?" "Don't worry about what I do. I do what I want," he told her, and then slapped her hard across the face. Not long afterward, Elida came to visit her sister and was shocked to find Castro shoving her into a cardboard washing machine box, closing the flaps and yelling, "You're not getting out of here until I tell you to get out." Elida, who was only 12, was terrified and ran to get her mother from their apartment downstairs. "What is going on here?" the mother demanded. "Ah, nothing," Castro said, letting Nilda out. "We were just playing." Everyone was growing concerned about Castro's increasingly violent behavior, but no one knew what to do. After their second child, Angie, arrived in 1983, and they were living on the top floor of a duplex on Riverside Avenue, he would lock the deadbolt from the outside and take the key so Nilda couldn't leave, telling her he was just trying to keep her safe. "I feel like a prisoner," Nilda told Elida. Even Elida could no longer freely visit because she couldn't get past the bolted door. Castro didn't like Nilda visiting family or friends or going anywhere unless he accompanied her. One day in 1985, when Castro had left the door unlocked, Nilda walked to the grocery store. When she returned, she was climbing the steep wooden stairs to the second floor apartment, carrying full bags
in her arms, and Castro leaped out and shoved his mannequin toward her. Nilda was so shocked that she fell backward down the stairs, smashing her skull when she landed at the bottom. Oh my God. She was rushed to the hospital and had emergency surgery. Nilda told her sister that Castro intentionally caused her fall because he was angry that she left the house alone. Nilda confided in Elida that she wanted to leave Castro but didn't see how she could. No one in her family had the means to support her and her children. Castro had threatened to harm her if she even tried to take the kids away from him. And she wouldn't, if she ever tried to take the kids away from him, and she wouldn't leave them alone with him. She had no job, no income, and nowhere to go. The abusive behavior only became worse. Castro made wild accusations about Nilda having affairs. He hit her whenever she said or did something he didn't like. One day, in a rage, he broke her arm and her ribs and punched her so hard that he broke her teeth, sending her to the hospital and requiring dental surgery. After that beating, Nilda's family had had enough. Her father, brothers, and a few friends grabbed Castro in his yard, pummeled him, and warned him they'd kill him if he ever touched her again. Castro just smiled, never apologized, and left them with the impression that he was going to get even. When Nilda's father's garage later burned down, they suspected Castro. On the evening of September 30th, 1989, one of Castro's brothers came to the house to pick him up, and Nilda asked where they were going. "Don't worry about what I do. I do what I want," he yelled at her, furious that she'd questioned him. He then slapped her and slammed
her several times against a wall and the washing machine. Nilda ran to a neighbor's house and called the police. She told the officers who arrived that she had been assaulted by Castro several times before, and they advised her to file a formal complaint with the county prosecutor's office. Nilda later told her sister that Castro threatened to kill her or take her kids if she pursued any charges against him, and he promised he wouldn't hurt her again. She didn't file a complaint. There were good times between his violent rages. In February 1991, Castro was hired as a bus driver for the Cleveland Metropolitan School District. Angie Castro, who was then 7, recalled that her father was so proud on the day he got his bus driver's certificate that the family, now with 4 kids, had a big celebration. In April 1992, Castro bought the house at 2207 Seymour Avenue for $12,000 from his uncle, Edwin Castro, and the family moved into the little 2-story home. Castro treated Angie and his other 2 daughters well, and Angie said it was fun when he would take the kids for rides in his school bus. When he was in a good mood, he could be a good father, but on his worst days, he continued to beat Nilda, and he began smacking around his son, Ariel Anthony, who was just 10. Nilda cried when she told her sister that he was forcing her to have sex when she didn't want to, and when the children could hear them. Castro started nailing the windows shut, saying it wasn't a safe neighborhood. He would often act as if he were leaving, but then sneak back into the house and
listened to Nilda's phone calls from an extension in the basement. "What's that noise?" Elida asked Nilda one day when they were on the phone. "Oh, I think that's Ariel listening on the other line." Nilda told her sister that she wanted to take her kids and go far away, but she was afraid of what Castro might do. "If you ever take my kids, I will kill you," he told her. Nilda never felt well again after crashing down the stairs and suffered from chronic headaches and blood clots. In late 1993, 8 years after the fall, doctors at the Cleveland Clinic discovered a tumor and operated to remove it. It was meningioma, a type of tumor that is sometimes linked to injury or trauma of the brain, and the prognosis was not good. "Ariel did this to me," she told Elida. On the day after Christmas in 1993, about a month after Nilda's surgery, Castro got drunk and started hitting her, then left the house. She called 911 and told officers that Castro had beaten her, even though she had recently had brain surgery and was very weak. While the police were searching the neighborhood for him, Castro returned to the house, banging on the door and screaming at Nilda to let him in. Angie, then 10, was upset that her father was outside in the cold and didn't realize he had just beaten her mother. She stood next to the Christmas tree in the living room and screamed, "Let Daddy in! Let Daddy in!" Nilda relented, and when she unlocked the door, he began beating her again. As the terrified children watched, she fell to the floor, and he began to stomp on, oh my God.
Her head with his boot. When Castro realized that his son was running to call the police, he chased after him out the front door. Police officers saw Castro running away from the house, captured him, and took him to jail. Nilda pushed past her limit, went to the police station the following day, and gave a more detailed formal statement. The case was referred to the county prosecutor, who decided there was enough evidence of domestic violence to present it to a grand jury. A felony conviction could have put Castro behind bars, but on February 9, 1994, a grand jury declined to indict him. Because Nilda refused to testify, there was insufficient evidence. Castro had been staking out the entrance to the Justice Center courthouse and stopped her just before she entered to testify, offering her money and a car if she remained silent. He also threatened her, called her a bitch, and warned her, "You know what will happen to you if you do." Nilda called her sister and said Castro threatened to kill her and the kids if she testified before the grand jury. Convinced that he was capable of fulfilling his threat, Nilda turned around and walked away from the courthouse. Fernando Colon first saw Nilda Figueroa in the summer of 1995 in the emergency room of Grace Hospital near downtown Cleveland. She was bleeding, had a broken nose, a missing tooth, and bruises on her face. Colon, a security guard at the hospital, had encountered her there several times with similar injuries.
And knew that she was being beaten. Recently divorced, he had just moved from New York to Cleveland, where he was hoping to start over. He wanted to be a police officer. Hospital staff were suspicious about Nilda's injuries, but she insisted that she had fallen down the stairs or made up some other story. She confided in Colon that the beatings would only get worse if she told doctors the truth. When Nilda returned for a follow-up visit, Colon found her sitting in a chair in the hallway looking frightened. "You all right?" he asked her. "Yeah, well," she replied, "for the moment I'm okay. Do you want to talk?" Nilda then began recounting her years of abuse at Castro's hands, including the times he beat her with barbells. She was in constant pain, suffering from seizures, and was losing vision in her left eye. Colon and Nilda stayed in touch, and during one of her hospital appointments, he said to her, "If I help, will you leave? You can't go through this no more. That dude's going to kill you." When Nilda said she wanted help, but was afraid of Castro, he told her, "Don't worry about him. Let me worry about him." Nilda started making plans to leave Castro, and one day in early 1996, nearly 16 years after she moved in with him, Colon drove over and took her away from Seymour Avenue when Castro was not home. She packed 3 of her kids and some belongings in his car, and he brought her to her mother's house. Angie, who was 12, insisted on staying with her father.
When he discovered what had happened, Castro tracked Colon down by phone and yelled, "You have my wife." "You're abusing this woman," Colon shot back. "I got copies of the medical records from the hospital. If you want trouble, I'm going to give you trouble. So you either back off or you're going to end up in jail." Nilda and the children eventually moved in with Colon, and one day Castro followed one of his daughters home to see where Nilda was living. "What you did was wrong," he screamed at Colon. "No, what I did was right, because you was going to kill that woman." "I'm not like that," Castro said. In March 1996, Nilda filed a juvenile court petition seeking full custody of all their children. She told the court that Angie was living with her father and being improperly cared for, and that she feared for her safety because Castro's record for long-term spousal abuse. Nilda said that Castro had been able to remove my children from school because of his position as a Cleveland public school bus driver. At times, she had gone to the bus stop to pick up her children after school, only to find that Castro had already taken them. The case dragged on for months, but in January 1997, Nilda was awarded sole custody of all 4 children, including Angie, who came to live with her. For Lillian Roldan, it was love at first sight.
She met Ariel Castro in 2000 at a friend's house. He was sitting in the living room playing his bass, well dressed and attractive. Castro was 40, almost twice her age. He lived alone, had been separated from his ex for 4 years, and though the oldest of his kids was almost Lillian's age, she found him charming and funny, and they began going out almost immediately. She went to his gigs and brought him to her parents' house, and he charmed them too. She would occasionally spend the night at Castro's house on Seymour Avenue. They slept in the master bedroom upstairs, and the house seemed completely normal to Lillian, apart from the fact that he kept the basement door locked with a padlock. When she asked about it, he explained that he kept his cash in the cellar, so he wanted to make certain it was secure. The relationship went well until one day in late 2002, when Lillian received a letter from Castro in which he said he loved her, but not enough to keep the relationship going. He told her to call him if she ever needed help, but that they were no longer a couple. Castro later told police that he broke it off with Lillian several months after he kidnapped Michelle Knight in August 2002, explaining that he couldn't juggle both of them. Oh my God. On the day he abducted Michelle, he chained her in the basement and then left to spend the night with Lillian at her home. He tried to find excuses to keep Lillian out of the Seymour house, but it was getting more and more difficult. One day, when they were standing in the driveway, she noticed a TV on upstairs, and she asked why, since there was no one in the house.
It was a close call, Castro later admitted to police. My heart started beating. When Lillian's mother died in Puerto Rico a few months later, and she didn't have enough cash to fly there to take care of the arrangements, she went to Castro's house to borrow money. He made her wait in the driveway while he went inside and got her $1,000. By then, Amanda Berry was also locked in Castro's house. Lillian later repaid him, but never saw him again.
This is probably a good point to stop. We've been going about an hour, and now we're going into Gina's story. So, wow. Wow, 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 wow.
You know, it occurred to me while we were reading this that the abuse gets handed down generation after generation after generation.
Yep.
And you know, that breaking chains is such an apt name for what we're drilling into right now with this story.
Well, that's exactly what my entire presence on YouTube has been about, that, intergenerational trauma,
Right.
passing our trauma down, because as we reveal the stories of these people's lives, you always find out that somebody who is incredibly abusive was also abused,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm sure that in most cases, the parents of the child who is being abused, they don't have, it's not that they're doing anything mean or nefarious. They have the child's best interests at heart. They just haven't been trained in how to correctly raise a child without disciplining them with violence, right? And they
Right.
pass that violence on down to, onto the next generation if they don't learn anything different. If the if the mental illness that comes from the abuse isn't treated, if the person doesn't change. And a lot of times people have children so early in life, especially decades ago, generations ago, people were having children so early in life that they couldn't have learned a different way of raising their own kids, and they resort back to the ways of their parents, which were also abusive,
Right.
and I just want people to learn that you have to break that chain. You must break that chain. If you don't want because the more that it gets passed down, the worse it gets from generation to generation, the worse it gets. And you end up with a guy like Castro who becomes the worst kind of person, who's going to kidnap and hold hostage and, for years and years, and abuse girls. And in this chapter that we just read, you see that he actively chose his hostage over his actual free girlfriend.
Mm-hmm.
The girlfriend who was choosing to be with him because she wanted to be with him, because she was attracted to him, and for the normal reasons. He didn't want that. He wanted someone that he had ultimate control over and could sadistically abuse. He wanted to hurt people.
Right.
And that is the environment. I don't think that's what his parents wanted. I highly doubt that when his parents abused him or neglected him or abandoned him, they wanted him to turn out to be a kidnapping, murdering man. And neither do any of us as parents want our children to turn into those things. But that means we have to make really intelligent choices about how we are raising our children and what we're passing on to them. And
That's right.
so bless you to all the people who have broken those chains.
Yeah, congratulations, Solo. I'm also a chain breaker. I had a lot of mistreatment in my past, and I refused to pass it down. In fact, I waited a very long time to start my family. I was in my both of my boys are adopted, but I didn't start my family till I was in my 40s. And part of it was because I was just terrified to be a mother, because of the way I was raised. And I saw the alcoholism, I saw the violence, I saw, how it was handed down in my family generation after generation. And my mother, was at the effect of it. But I chose differently. I didn't have to be at the effect of it. And I said, no, this is not going to be the way I go. And, I understand the loneliness that you talk about, Solo, because it's, you have to choose a different path. But now looking back, I couldn't be prouder of, the path that I chose and the young men that my boys have become. And, it's, I didn't pass it down. And, none of us are perfect. They're not perfect. I'm certainly not perfect. But at least that the violence, the alcoholism, the addiction was broken, at least for me and for my family, and hopefully for my boys as they move forward in their life. And it's all you can do. You make the choice and you do it. And it doesn't always happen that way. People, it's hard. It's not an easy thing. I can see at a point in my life when I was very young, I could have gone the other way very easily. I could have become an addict. I could have been on the streets. I could have, done something very differently with my life. And whether it was a guardian angel looking after me or something, I don't know where it came from, but that just wasn't the path that I chose to take. So we're all, isn't it interesting how we're here because of what you do, Lynn? The breaking the chains, and we're in some way or another chain breakers.
Yep. And I know that there's many, many, many other, chain breakers out there. What breaks my heart is when I see that there's so much evidence that chains are just being not broken. That the chain just keeps going and going and going and going and going. And so I don't think it'll ever be, it'll never be perfect. But my big concern with social media is that it basically added an entire layer of escalation to all of it,
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so almost like it inspired me to just, okay, well, if social media is going to be the cause of some of the continuation of that chain, continuing to go, well, let's bring in some mitigating factors with some information about these chains can be broken. And this book to me is a bellwether for that kind of thing, that these girls have broken this chain, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
These girls went through the worst of the worst. I mean, they went through, anything I could say about my child, what you could say about your childhood. I don't want to speak for you, but these children, these girls went through the worst of the worst of the worst of the worst.
Horrific. It was horrific. How they
Horrible.
survived, I don't know. I mean, I can see where you'd want to take your life if you were in that
Yeah,
situation.
absolutely. Hey, Patricia. A continuous better the devil shitty attitude, kind of. Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, so we will continue reading this book next week. For the last week, I've been kind of struggling with what my next video is going to be, but I just figured out what my next video is going to be. So you'll see that coming out sometime this week.
Oh boy, I can't
Yeah,
wait.
I'm not gonna tease it, because I don't want, in case anybody is like stealing ideas from me. Not that I'm that important, but sometimes that happens. People will take ideas,
Oh, for sure. I mean, look what's happened with the whole, if you're still following the whole Wade Wilson,
Oh my God.
craziness, it's like there are so many creators out there jumping on the Wade Wilson, bandwagon, and every time a phone call from prison breaks, everyone's like doing something about it. And so you hear the same thing over and over again.
Yeah.
But, I have to say that when I get my notification that you've posted something, it's like a little bright spot in my day. It's like,
good.
oh boy, oh boy, Lynn's posted something. What does she have now?
Thank you. Yeah. I mean,
Good. Yeah.
It's a letdown for people who want drama, but oh well. What are you gonna do?
Well, there are many of us who we can find drama anywhere we want to on YouTube, right? But the smart stuff, the intelligent stuff is harder, much harder to find. So, yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, I once again want to thank you very much for your helping me read again with your lovely, lovely voice.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Len. You don't have to thank me. I'm happy to be here. Absolutely.
And I would like to thank everybody who's joined us today, and thank you all of those who have remembered to hit the thumbs up. I have not started memberships on this channel. I'm thinking I probably won't start memberships until I find probably next year, when there are more court cases to stream. And things like that. I like to be able to, actually have have like a ongoing community, and when I'm just going live once a week, it just doesn't feel right to be, having memberships. So, anyway, I do hope that everybody has it is Patricia.
Oh, wow.
Lennon, poor guy, was assassinated just because he was what was the reason he was? It was that was the Ronald Reagan assassination for Jodie, for Jodie the actress, right?
Jodie Foster.
Yeah, Jodie Foster. What was the reason there was another kind of mental reason John Lennon was assassinated. What was it?
Patricia must know.
Do you know, Patricia? What was it was like something mental like that. Some stalkery, because Mark Chapman
wanted to be famous.
Wanted to be famous. Yeah, makes sense. I feel like that's what's going on with this CEO assassination.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
Because now people are praising that guy.
Right.
People are like, yes, you killed you killed a symbol of the horrible American healthcare system. I mean, you're not my hero, sir. I mean, but that's what, but he's probably loving that kind of attention.
Oh, for sure. It's going to be Netflix series, the whole
Yeah.
thing.
Oh, for sure. For sure.
Yeah.
But once they finally catch the guy and
I know, right? Right.
have you seen pictures of him? I mean, he looks like 50,000 different people I've seen. You know what I
Right.
mean? It's like I don't know him. I can't identify him, but he looked like you've seen somebody who looks like that, at least for the portions of the face that you can see.
Right.
There's so many people that look like that. I'm like, gosh,
Yeah.
I hope the people who really know him can identify him.
Right. Yeah.
But
Yes. That's another crazy story yeah, Solo,
we'll,
everything's nuts, right?
we'll have to see how that yes, there was a look-alike contest yesterday.
Oh, no.
On TikTok, right? I think it was on TikTok. Oh my gosh. Lynn, some of the image being touted as him or not him. Okay. Yeah.
Mm,
Well, that's gonna happen on social media. All
yeah.
the social media um, trolls coming out, putting out fake pictures for whatever they get out of it, whatever the fuck they get out of it, trolling everybody. But the actual killer had Monopoly money in his backpack.
Which was hilarious.
So he's definitely trolling us,
Yeah.
whether he was the actual one who wanted that guy dead or was hired to kill that. It was definitely very, very planned out with inside information, and it's crazy. So, but that's another one of the things that I'll wait for more information to come out before I draw any conclusions or predictions. Solo, what are you asking? What about what, Solo? Are you asking about the Monopoly money? Yeah, they found Monopoly. They found the guy's backpack and it had Monopoly money in it and something else. It was very trolly. Very, very trolly. So anyway, well, yep, Monopoly money. Yep. Go look it up. It's fucking crazy.
Lynn, do we know next big trials coming up yet?
Um,
Or
I've been tracking the ones that I'm interested in. The one, let me look here. Look at my list. Trials. I've been, let's see.
the Lori Vallow, I don't know when her trial's
Right.
coming
So
up.
that one is so Donna Adelson is supposed to be
Right.
she's supposed to be in court this week. So
Okay.
I've been tracking that. Donna Adelson, because hers was supposed to happen, and then all of a sudden it got delayed
Right.
because they had to get I think that was like because Charlie Abelson was like conflict of interest with a lawyer. Well, you could have said that. Oh, Crystal Rogers, is that one coming up, Patricia? Corey Richens, she's been going through
Oh,
some
right.
motion, and that's coming in the spring. So Lori Vallow is supposed to be, she just had a hearing, and she was she's now officially going pro se. She's been held competent. So her first trial starts in March 31st, on March 31st. And now, if I'm understanding correctly, she's going to actually have two trials in Arizona, one for the attempted murder of Brandon Boudreaux and a separate one for the murder of Charles Vallow. And it's the one in the trial that starts in March. She'll build a Bible for it. Yeah. The one in March is for the attempted murder of Brandon Boudreaux. That's my understanding, if I heard correctly in the last hearing. So we're going to have a lot of Lori Vallow to follow next year. And I noticed that her son, Colby, did a live recently saying, oh, here we go again. And I just feel horrible for him, right?
I do too.
For her remaining, and for the remaining family members who have to get reminded and dragged through this over and over.
Through all of this again. Yeah. It's
And she
horrible.
knows she's guilty. She knows she's guilty.
Yep.
She knows. She could just say, she knows she's gonna die in prison. She's gonna die in prison. So for her to just keep going forward like this and keep, and when she goes into court, it's like she's giddy, she's like,
Oh
oh,
yeah.
goody. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
here
Oh,
I am. Don't I look
heart.
cute? Yeah.
So she's there to, she's there to get her like ridiculous, delusionally grandiose, biblical message out there, which we all know is a complete farce and sham, for her to explain why she killed these people, and it's just, oh God,
Maybe she can hook up with Sarah Boone, because Sarah evidently has found God. And so so the two of them might have a lot in common.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's the other thing to think about, what Patricia is saying. So she will actually be the one who is questioning her victims. That This is one of the things that is really grating about our justice system, is when the defendant goes pro se, and then the victims have to face that defendant in court, and the defendant is the one standing there asking the victims the questions. So they have to, it's so horrifying. So if in court, if she calls Colby, her son, as a witness, or if the state calls Colby as a witness, it's going to be Lori who's going to be asking the questions
Ugh.
and doing the cross-examination, right? It's I mean, what she has been putting her family through is just fucking insane, man.
Yeah.
So yeah,
We have that to look forward to.
we have that. And then one trial I've been tracking for quite some time, and I can't believe they just keep putting it off and putting it off, is Larry Millete. That he's going to trial for the murder of Maya Millete.
Oh, right.
In Chula Vista. They haven't found her body yet. But there seems to be enough evidence against him, and they keep pushing. That trial was supposed to start July of this year, and now it's not starting until July of next year.
Mm.
So
Yeah, that'll be interesting too.
yeah,
Oh.
he was hiring people to do witchcraft on her, to cast spells on her, to oh, can you just break her leg, something to hobble her, not hurt her too much. He was literally like going on Fiverr, which is
To find
yes,
witchcraft people to
yes,
cast spells.
to find spellcasters. Yes,
Wow.
he hired spellcasters from Fiverr.
I had
And
no idea you could do that.
I guess you can do anything. There's probably some like gig site, for
Yeah.
spellcasters.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
anyway. All
Wow.
right. Okay, I've ended this like 50 different times now. So, all right, everybody have a lovely rest of your Sunday, and I will see you on the tubes this week. And my heart goes out to anybody who's going through anything horrible, or
Yeah.
during this holiday season. So
Yeah.
thank you for all being here, and I will see you very, very soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.